Is it haram to have a crush? A crush will get you crushed.
I get young children, as young as 11, 12 years old, 13 years old, because of social media.
Oh yeah.
They hear these
sometimes.
statements all the time. And unfortunately, the media now is flooded with topics on sexuality from a very, very young age. So I get these questions asked, and I'm sure you as parents will as well. She says, or they say to me, what is a crush? I have a crush on so-and-so. Kids as young as grade 1 say, I have a crush on so-and-so.
You know what, when you think about the word crush, it has like a negative meaning to it, right? Like to be crushed, to be like burdened by something, to be like under pressure basically, right? Like if you're being crushed by, let's say, rocks or something, you're literally being put down and you're like having so much pressure it can cause you pain. Like a crush, when you think about the word, it has something negative about it, right? And that's quickly there's something I wanted to mention these days because like how the Sheikh here said, how like social media even affects 12 and 13-year-old kids. So I'm someone that was born in the 90s, and social media became like a big thing around like early 2000 something, right? And then like all the big platforms came out and they became popular, from Facebook to like TikTok and all that. Like when all those platforms started, there was not so much sexualization going on there. It was pretty harmless. It was mostly about like video games and vlogs, and sometimes you had like a cooking video, or someone told people about their vacation to maybe Greece or Turkey or something, right? Like it was very, very innocent, and people were dressed up more, had more clothes on when they were even vlogging and stuff. Like a lot changed over the past, I would say, like 7 years or so, right? Like if you look back like how it was like 8 years ago, it wasn't as bad as today. But yeah, crush has a negative meaning when you think about it. Like you're being crushed.
And today I even got asked by some young girls at the school, quite young, maybe 10, 11, 12 years old.
May Allah
What is a
protect
crush?
our
Is it
children.
halal to have a crush? So let's first of all understand, what is a crush in the English language in the Western society? What does it mean? So if you look up the dictionary, anything, the Oxford or the Merriam-Webster, or you look up the Cambridge or the any kind of English dictionary, and you'll find a similar meaning, which means a crush is a strong and intense feeling which makes you think that you like someone, but it is temporary, and usually you like someone who you know is highly unlikely you will ever be with. This thing called a crush can take you into seriously dangerous areas from an Islamic perspective and from an emotional, mental perspective. People with crushes can get obsessed with their crush. It can sometimes be a celebrity,
from prayer even,
religious or non-religious. It can be someone at school because they got interested in what they see on social media, let's say a particular hairstyle or a particular look, and they go to school and they see that boy or that girl who looks like that person they saw on social media, and they find that he or she is my crush. Sometimes they have some interests that they find that maybe they have the same as them, and then they say, I've got a crush. This thing can be obsessive, and a person can turn into a stalker. They can follow that person, look at their social media page. They can, every time they're around, they act different, they act weird.
It's actually scary when you think about this, and I believe that this, and I'm 100% sure about this, that this actually have led also to some crimes, like the stalking part, for example. Like, what is if someone has a crush and gets obsessed so much, right, with one person that they stalk them, and they keep stalking until the person finds out and reports them to the police. And they don't have a blank page anymore when it comes to the authorities, right? And a person can ruin their blank page that they have that is actually good for finding a job. Like here in Germany, for example, it's very, very strict. when you're looking for a job, like your files with the authority, they need to be blank. If there's anything written like, oh, you assaulted someone, you did this and this, like you cannot do a lot of jobs anymore because of this. Or you can do that job, but you're on, if there's like a waiting list at the bottom, right, and any other person applying that has like a blank page on that, they will be picked first, and you're like the last choice basically to the company. So this is very, very dangerous. This can ruin your future, even in like not like in an akhira aspect, of course, because you can fall into haram, right? But even from a dunya perspective, this can harm you. So if anyone's like watching this and you're a non-Muslim and you don't believe in what we believe, be very careful with this as well, because this can ruin your dunya. If you have a crush that you get obsessed and you commit a crime and you're like later on looking for a job, like this can be a big disadvantage for you.
Some of them, if they come on a tram or by transport, they'll probably go and deliberately wait outside the school, probably unsupervised, and then wait for the particular tram, particular transportation where they know that crush is going to be on, or they'll wait out school and wag, or they'll do a lot of things that really makes them misbehave just for their crush. It can lead you to obsession. They can stop eating, they can stop drinking, they can stop sleeping if they get too much and follow this desire of a crush.
It's like addiction. Wow.
So brothers and sisters, it is a dangerous thing. Crush means it truly will crush you if you follow that desire. However, brothers and sisters, please understand me. Having a crush is just another name of this natural feeling that, especially young people, the younger you are, the more you'll have this. The older you are, the less likely, because you understand life and you have more experience in understanding people,
you become more
emotions
realistic
and relationships, and you focus on what really matters. You start to understand life better. But when you're younger, you have a fantasy, you have this imagination that goes through your head, and it makes you feel good. When you have a crush, it gives you those special tingly, they call it butterfly feelings in your stomach. Okay, I'm even sure that some older people have felt that when they got engaged and they had some interest. It's very normal.
Yeah.
So these girls asked me, boys don't usually talk about it, but they even have crushes, but they just don't know what to call it. Girls are very smart with wording, so they know what they're saying, and they, mashallah, they ask these questions. So having a crush is sometimes out of your control. It's just a feeling that comes to you. The community, your friends talk to you, what you see on social media affects you, and so you feel, oh, I like that boy, I like that girl. So that feeling, if it's out of your control and it just came to you, it's not a sin, it's not haram, but acting on it becomes haram.
Yeah, there's actually a hadith reported by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, where our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about Allah that if a person has a good deed in mind, is thinking about doing a good deed, but does not do the good deed, the person gets a good deed, a reward from Allah written, right? But if you have a bad thought, right, like for example, someone has a crush and wants to, let's say, text the person and knows the social media of that person that this one has a crush on, and texting the opposite gender like that is haram, of course, right? Like you don't want to involve in like a outside of marriage relationship as a practicing Muslim, as a Muslim in general. And if you don't act on it or you don't commit zina with that crush, but you think about it, you get a good deed, because it's explained in this hadith, because you didn't act on it. That's why, because you refrained from committing a sin, that's why you get a good deed. Because there's another hadith saying this, and by the way, this is in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. This is totally Sahih, what I just said. But there's also another hadith, and in this one, it's actually mentioned that our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that my ummah will not be punished for the thoughts they have. So if you're, for example, someone, because some people ask, oh, is being gay allowed in Islam? And the thing is this, you have to go into two categories here. You have to go into the category of the feeling, that you feel an attraction towards the opposite gender, and you have to go to the category on acting upon it. That means like having, let's say, intercourse with the same gender, right? So the second category is totally prohibited. It's forbidden. Okay, but if an individual feels a certain way about a certain gender or has those thoughts, and this hadith explains it beautifully, you don't get punished for it. And the other hadith explains that you even get a reward for not doing it. You get a good deed. So yeah, this is how it is. So having a crush isn't haram, but acting on it is haram. So be careful.
Acting on it. So if you follow that feeling of crush, because it's kind of a romantic thing, right? I like that boy, I like that girl romantically. And they think it's called love, but it's not love, right? And especially if they're very young, they're not ready for marriage. They don't know what marriage is. They don't know what relationships are. So they're exploring. We got to educate them, for parents to sit with their daughters and their sons, to tell them what is a crush, define it to them, tell them why it's not good to follow in that feeling in Islam, because it's going to make you, it's going to break your heart, it's going to hurt your feelings, it's not real, it's a fantasy, right? It's just something that doesn't really exist. And what happens is that it lasts for about a few weeks to 2 months, some people even to 4 months. These girls said, how long does it last? I said 6 months, just in case. And inshallah, it does go away. So these are, true love. If you do feel something like that, brothers and sisters, I always advise my brothers and sisters this. Are you ready for marriage? Can you get married? Can you go and start the process? And
it's good to get married early.
Meet the family and ask for her hand, and it doesn't have to be marriage straight away, but can you get engaged? Are you ready to meet people to get married? Are you old enough? Are you mature enough? If all the answers are no,
it's about maturity.
Then know that all you're doing is that you're torturing yourself if you follow the feelings of liking or having a crush. Okay? It'll go away and you will move on, but don't act on it, because it can lead you to bad places. I have had these experiences with young people, past and present. I've been teaching for about, 16, 17 years. And I do a bit of counseling, student counseling. So these students do come to me, Muslims, and you always have this story, all the time, brothers and sisters. And I think parents should really start to learn about these terminologies and talk to their children about, and I dare to say it, the word sexuality, love, liking, relationships from a young age. Talk to them about puberty from the age of 9 or 10, even 8. For the girls especially, because they reach puberty before boys. Talk about these topics and
this is the thing, what he says, like, you have to explain Allah to your children from a young age. Why? Because if you don't explain it to them, somebody else will. And what is if your children, they have this sort of love exploration phase, right? Where they are like, what is love? What is a crush? I saw this and this on TV, and unfortunately the media is like he said at the beginning, right? Like filled with like fitna everywhere, right? Like there's everywhere like romance, this and that. Like you can't even like cartoons have this already, right? Like kids are watching cartoons where two characters are kissing each other and stuff. Like what is that, right? It's crazy, right? Like you have this for kids, like a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old watches a cartoon, and in this cartoon two have a relationship or a crush on each other. Like you have one cartoon character, and there's suddenly like a heart above the head of the character, then it gives the flowers, gets a kiss on the cheek or something. Like you have this kind of stuff, even though it seems still harmless on TV. But those sort of thoughts or what they see go into the head of the child, right? And you have like also human autonomy classes and also other types of classes in school, and even when they are only 11 years old they learn about this in school, right? So you as a parent, you must be like one of the first sources to actually teach your child about this and teach it the halal way and explain the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and explain why it is bad to act upon certain feelings and to get married first and then be in love, and not before you marry be in love. Because you can also like actually, it depends on the age of your children, right? But you can also give stories or maybe show your child, and this is now like, oh, you're gonna traumatize your child if you show this, but you can show like single parents and tell your children how miserable they live and this and that, and you can give them a bit of fear, but not a fear that they don't want to ever get married, but explain to them that if you do it the wrong way, you end up like this and this person. Like give them maybe some statistics, but it depends on their age, right? If they're very small, like let's say 9 or 10, don't do it. But if they're like 14 or 13 or even 15, a certain age where they are a bit smart, you can actually show them destroyed individuals that are now maybe swallowing pills, having problems with finances, this and that, and explain that they got into this because of zina or something. And you cause a bit of fear for this to your child, right? And you need to also give your child the comfort that if your child feels ready to get married, that you're going to be completely behind it and support it, even if it's the age 18 or 19. Because a lot of people that end up in haram relationships are doing this also because the parents are totally blocking the path of the halal marriage, of the nikah. Why? Because they have insane expectations. The boy must own already a he must have a big house, he must have a own car, his income must be 3,000 plus US dollars a month. If it's only around, let's say, 2,000 or something, he can't. If he's a student, he can. Like, the expectations of parents are insane. Like, it's almost like they want like princes or kings to marry their daughters in this dunya, also from a financial perspective. And then the mahr, the bride gift should be at least $20,000 plus or something. Like, this is insanity. Like, not even like the average people have that often. Like, can you go down like maybe 5,000 or something, not 20,000 or something more realistic, right? Like, it's actually insane, like what some parents even expect, right? Like, it's total insanity. And this actually leads the children to actually act upon those feelings, because you're not offering them a plan B, a halal plan, right?
For the girls especially, because they reach puberty before boys. Talk about these topics and let it be a normal topic that you as parents can talk with your children. Children, talk with your parents. Talk about your experiences. How did you meet their mum? How did you meet their dad? But, within reason. Let them talk to you rather than talking to someone else. I know a brother who I learnt this from. He says, I say to my daughter all the time, she is an angel. I even joke with her with cheap lines like, did it hurt when you fell from heaven because you're an angel? These cheap pick-up lines. He says them to his daughter, and his daughter says, come on, Dad, that's, you don't say stuff like that. But she became normalized to it, so that he said to me, because I know some other boys are going to come and use cheap lines to pick her up. So I'm going to beat them to it. And whenever they say it, she says, oh, my dad says those to me. My brother says that to me.
This can work.
So brothers and sisters, get that used to it, so that she doesn't fall for the praise who just want to prey on her. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, brothers and sisters. So I'm going to move on from this thing called crush. And by the way, love really comes after you've met somebody and you've lived together for a while.
Yeah.
Marriage doesn't necessarily have to have intense love from the beginning.
It grows
Marriage
over
can
time.
build the love or can crush the love later on. It depends on how you build it, how you are there for each other. As a man said to Umar ibn al-Khattab, I like this person, I trust him. He says, did you travel with him? Did you stay at his house? Have you done any business trade with him? He said, no. He said, then you don't know him. Don't say you just like him. You just like what you see or what you can imagine he is. So
yeah, images can be misleading, and we also have to consider the human nature of hormones, right, and desires, and that there's also shaitan that exists, that is always tempting us and whispering to us to do something bad, right? So if an individual is like totally on, let's say, testosterones and sees this women and forgot to lower his gaze or didn't do it for some reason, right, then of course such imagination or feeling about a person can develop in someone's heart, right, and thoughts. And this is very dangerous, because you don't think rational. You don't think about, is this person actually good for me? Is this person loyal? Does this person even do the 5 prayers, waking up for Fajr? Is this a person I can actually raise children with, and those will be good children, well-mannered, and they will truly learn about Islam, because I'm always working, busy, and the wife is mostly going to be around the children. So what sort of mother am I picking for my children? Like, this is something people have to pay more close attention to, and they need to calm down with their hormones, because sometimes it's looks and that someone goes for, and looks can be deceiving, right? As they say, looks can be deceiving. It's a fact. So you have to be very, very careful with that when you pick a spouse, and also vice versa for the sisters, right? Like, a sister could see a guy, he's like always at the gym working out, he's maybe flexing his new sports car that he just actually not bought, but maybe got from like riba, right? It was like leasing car or something, right? So you have to be very, very careful with that, because they're also like a lot of show-off guys, right? And if you actually get to know them as a sister, you see they have many bad sides, but you are blind because of the image that they portray to you. So be very careful. Like, don't rush into things, okay?
You can imagine he is. So really, in marriage, you get to know each other more, and you just learn about the important things that you need to know for a marriage. And understand that when you marry someone, you're bringing 2 families together.
That's also
sometimes you're bringing tribes together.
Yeah.
Tribes. Some people, Lebanese, Turkish, Somalian, marrying Asian, whatever. Islam allows all these types of marriages and makes no distinction, so long as you are compatible and you're good for each other. We bring countries together through marriage.
That's true.
It's not just you and him or you and her. It's not Hollywood where you both hold hands and walk out into the sunset as if the whole world doesn't exist.
Life still is
You
there.
have families together. So Talk to older people. Talk to wise people. Talk to your parents. There's nothing wrong with saying to mum, what's a crush? I have a crush on this boy. Let her talk to you. Let dad talk to you. It's all right. Talk to older people so they can guide you and not just your little friends who are around you. Because in Arabic, the friend that you have at school or the friend that you have who's your same age, the only thing they can really do for you is just to lean on them, to hug them and cry, or just to talk and they say, oh, I'm here. But really they can't do much. They can't advise you more than what you know. A 13-year-old girl getting advice from another 13-year-old girl, what's she going to know? She only knows what she knows. But getting advice from a mother or an aunt who was...
Yeah, I mean, imagine like getting marriage advice for someone that has never been married. Like they don't even know how a marriage looks like, right? Like, should I marry this person? How is marriage gonna be like? Like, you know what you should reply as a 13-year-old if someone asks you, how do I know? I was never married before. Ask someone that was married before, okay? Not me. Like, that's what you should reply, okay?
Gonna know. She only knows what she knows. But getting advice from a mother or an aunt who was older, or a teacher, or anybody else who's older, like an older sister who can advise you, or a brother, or a father, these people can advise you and can guide you in a better way.
Yeah.
So always good to have a friend or a family member who's older than you can take advice from. A friend who is at school, who is your age, is called Rafiq. In Arabic, Rafiq means the elbow. Mirfaq comes from mirfaq, because Arabic is so particular with names. And there are 8 different types of friends mentioned in the Quran. One of them is Rafiq. And Rafiq is an elbow, which means you can only lean on them.
But not
just share your emotions with them, and that's about it. But they can't really solve much for you. Okay, so you need a wali. A wali means someone older who is responsible for you, who's invested in you, like your father, your uncle, your brother. If you have a son, for example, your mother, all these who are invested in you, that what happens to you will affect them. These people can guide you
and they have more experience. Yeah, that was a very informative video. Let me give this one a thumbs up. And yeah, like I said, the thing is this, right? Like, if you don't have a connection with your children and you explain this to them before somebody else does, they get the wrong understanding about something. And like, especially if you live, like, let's say in a Western country, right? Like, there are a lot of people that are atheists or they have different beliefs than us Muslims. And even though we can, like, peacefully coexist and work together and interact with each other, they have a different lifestyle. And if you as a parent, you don't actually teach the way it is done in Islam after the Quran and the Sunnah, you end up in a situation where another ideology or belief or lifestyle will enter the head, the mind of your child. And they're actually going to fall in like major haram things and stuff. They're going to get like very distant from Islam over time. So it's always good to have this sort of, I'm my child's best friend, but at the same time also respected, of course, to my daughter or son. This is very, very important, that you have a good communication with your children, and that also you as a parent are a good example and you don't involve into haram activities. Because the thing is this, if someone involves in haram, right? I'm not saying it's forbidden to call others too good and forbid them something that you are doing. I mean, of course, like, it's always good to remind others, hey, you shouldn't smoke, even if a person smokes, let's say, right? But you should be someone that doesn't do that sin if you advise someone, because it's better. I'm not saying you can't, but it's way better if you yourself are the perfect role model, because people are going to look at you and be like, you know what? You're right. Like, you're not doing it and you're a good example for me. I feel inspired by you. I'm not going to do this anymore, right? Like, this is how you should be also as a parent. So our responsibility with fulfilling our duties towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also connected with the responsibility that we have over our younger generation, to summarize this, right? But yeah, acting on feelings, like I explained earlier with this hadith that was narrated by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, where our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if an individual has a good deed in mind but doesn't act on it, he or she still gets a good deed written. But if someone has a bad deed in mind, like let's say a crush here, but acts not on it, right, and refrains from committing zina or reaching out to this person and chatting or something, then you get a good deed written for not acting upon this bad deed that came to your mind, right? So keep this in mind. You can even collect indirectly, right? Like, I mean, yeah, you could technically get good deeds by having a crush, but you shouldn't have a crush, because this actually leads you to fall into sin, unless you have a very strong self-control, what unfortunately most people don't have, so you shouldn't open even that door. But yeah, my advice to parents when it comes to your child has a crush: don't make marriage difficult for your children. Don't set your expectations too high, because if you keep your children that has such feelings and desires for too long single like this, eventually they're gonna fall into haram. It's just a fact. And in certain countries or areas, it's even way easier to fall into that because of the availability of the haram and how easy it is to access. So you have to be very, very careful with it as a parent. And if it happens to be at the age of 19 or 20 and you're like, this is the student time, like my child's still going to university, make a deal with that family. Like if a boy comes, he's 19, your daughter is 19, let's say, right, and he's like doing his bachelor studies, right, like sit together with the boy's family and make a deal that perhaps the daughter stays at your home or on campus. It depends on where they live at this moment during university times, right? But you still allow them to get married, and they can like meet each other, hang out, maybe, I don't know, go for some ice cream, for dinner, this and that, right? And then they become halal for each other. And then after their studies, what is maybe 3 years later, then they move together, right? Like you can make compromises to protect your children from haram. Like it is not a must-have to live together when you get married with someone in Islam. It is, of course, better. It is more protection. It makes the marriage even better, right? But it is not forbidden to live in two places while married. So if you have like a child that's like 18, 19, student age, and it needs 3 or 4 more years to actually be stable in life and get married, guess what? 3 or 4 years are enough to fall into haram. So you have to be very, very careful with that. And yeah, lowering the gazes for those of you that do have a crush. Like try to control the way you use social media. Don't look at too many images of women or boys if you're a girl. Avoid any interactions with the opposite gender. Focus more on yourselves and on your deen. Make a lot of dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yeah, lower your gaze. This is my advice for those that are young. And yeah, I hope this video was informative for you guys. If you guys are new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content. If you guys enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this one a thumbs up. And I will see you guys next time, inshallah.